All right, well, it's noon, so
I think I was at noon. Was that noon?
yeah, oh,
Just making sure.
yeah, so we'll begin. So thanks everyone for coming today. Again, the purpose of today is, I think everyone's pretty well acquainted in the room. Everybody know everybody. Mike Hartwick, City of Fergus Falls, HR Director, sitting over here. And so really the purpose of today, just to interview the candidates or give any candidate who's present an opportunity to answer some additional questions, just so that everyone feels good about the process. Mayor Ben Shire did pass along as well that he appreciates everyone's work and effort here. Says obviously, you know, it's been a little bit of a trying process, but really appreciative of everyone staying the course as we work through this. We all want the same thing and just really the best for the Fergus Falls Airport. So we'll start off first. Wynn, you're sitting up here, so let's start with Wynn Roberts. And so we're gonna go half an hour per candidate. And we have kind of the same list of questions for everyone. Just in the interest of time, we may skip a couple of questions and we'll do it consistently for everybody. So without further ado, Wynn, first question, what makes you the best suited candidate for managing the Fergus Falls Municipal Airport?
I feel that I care deeply for the community. I think that my involvement with the community and different people of the area will encourage the community's involvement with the airport. I believe that my military flying at several different airports gives me a nice understanding of what is enjoyable for an FBO. You know, the amount of time that I have to invest into the airport and the city of Fergus Falls, I think really sets me apart in being a full-time on-site manager. It's hard to hire somebody that has the same passion that you have as far as when you're trying to deliver a quality product to the people that are using the facilities out there. And just my ability to listen to, it's not what I want, it's what the community wants. It's what the airport, the people that use the airport want. And then what makes the most sense fiscally for the city as far as the expansion of the airport and the services that are provided out there. If you want any more, you can keep elaborating, but that's kind of the overall gist.
Thank you. You'll need to have other staff available to assist with operations in your absence. What qualifications will these individuals have?
The biggest qualifications are mature and experienced adults. Tom Larson, he lives 5 minutes away. He'll be working for me. He's done everything. He's a computer engineer. He's a mechanic. He's pseudo-retired right now, so he's a great fit for out at the airport. He doesn't have an extensive aviation background, but just customer service and his ability to interact with all types of people, and having that age and maturity to know to ask the right questions as far as not messing things up. I have a gentleman named Bob Seifert. He lives over in Pelican Rapids. He's retired military. He's been around aircraft his entire career with the military. He's another gentleman that wants to work for me at the airport. Megan Duckwitz, she's currently employed with UPS, works half days with UPS. She's a CFI. She's done instructing out at the airport. She is game to start working out at the airport on a part-time basis. And then I have a few friends with high school kids. That would be great experiences for them to be able to be out there and work, but I would be doing the majority of the on-site myself, and then augmenting for the longer days, depending on when the community wants the airport open for longer days. If they want it open longer than a 5-hour block on Saturday, then we'll adjust to what fits the community. And then just as far as maintenance goes, right now Bryce Klinger's in the hangar. I don't see an issue for that unless other people in the community just approve of Bryce being in the main hangar working on aircraft. But that's kind of the start of my staffing plan.
Okay. We're going to skip to question 4. What are your plans to market the Fergus Falls Municipal Airport and its services, and how will you measure to determine if these efforts have been successful?
The big one that I see lacking is social media. I would push, similar to what Joe LaRue has going down at Elbow Lake. He's got daily posts going out. On Tuesdays, he's doing videos just to kind of recap what they've been working on that week. I think that'll be huge. If people are game to be on videos or talk about flying in. The inside of the airport needs a little bit of a facelift as far as paint, improving just the overall flow of it, seating, lighting, just making it more comfortable and relaxing. If you walk into a well-established FBO, generally you walk in and you feel at home, you know? It's like going into a nice restaurant, it feels right. And Fergus feels a little bit more like a nursing home than that. It's just kind of how I see it. It's not bad, but we can make it a lot better. So yeah, the social network, your social marketing, social networking, facelift, part of the way to get people in the door just be lower fuel prices until it's established and people are like, wow, this is a beautiful place. Customer service is better than anywhere else we're flying into. And at that point, you can start bringing your fuel prices back up so they're the same as the other airports around, because once you get people through the door and they enjoy it, they're going to keep coming back. They're not going to, I'm not saying jack the fuel prices up, but make them the same as everywhere else or competitive with everywhere else. And then just what the community involvement is out there. It's hard to judge just off of numbers on a Facebook page, but like if we bring there's usually between 6 and 8 people that show up for an EAA meeting. If you want to show and build success, you should be able to in 6 months be like, we've got 14 to 20 people at the EAA meeting. You know, we have the numbers of aircraft flying in right now, it's like 24 a day on average. Like if all of a sudden you're up to 40 to 50 aircraft a day, that's going to show a major improvement. Yeah, those are just kind of a few of the ideas. More events. The Dad's Waffle flying that the EAA hosts is huge. There's no reason you can't do other events even if they're not aviation related. As far as fly-ins, classic car show involved with the flying, things like that. I think it'd be very beneficial to Hillcrest has an aviation program that they started last year. I know they would like to be involved out at the airport. There wasn't a whole lot of there wasn't a great response from the airport for Hillcrest. Just the timing didn't work out with the day and the kids. I've got access to some old helicopters that I'd like to bring in and then be able to do community projects with those, as far as taking these 3 old Bell 206s and creating one helicopter that would just be a working replica, just to get people involved in aviation. So whether it be through Hillcrest or other kids in the community through EAA, bringing them in and just making aviation accessible to everybody.
Okay. Jumping to question 7, what are some of the optional services you're able to provide airport customers?
Well, right now you have fuel out there, oil, because that goes hand in hand with fuel. I would say you can clean people's aircraft, no trouble. Currently, Bryce is out there as a mechanic. There's a mechanic service provided out there. I don't have my CFI yet. I'm going to get that. Megan Duckwitz would be able to provide flight service out of there. I have access to an aircraft, for doing basic flight instruction. There's no reason we can't have community events or gatherings out there, as far as either letting not-for-profit or community groups use the airport facility for free, or whatever an appropriate rate for whatever organization is using. I don't know what the city's matrix is for allowing their buildings to be used like that, but I'll find that out. I'm employed for a Part 135, so I could do charters with a helicopter. It's not feasible. It wouldn't make sense. You need it to be VFR for the charter that I work for, or the 135 I work for. So I can't provide charter services. But that's just a phone call to bring in a charter service. It's just coordination. It's not a necessity, I don't believe, for Fergus Falls. And then hangar space for people. hangar parking for transient aircraft. Yeah, that's,
You mentioned having access to an aircraft. Is that something you own or Megan has, or?
no, it's a rented aircraft.
Okay.
It's Dan's.
But it'd be
Not the
for
whiskey.
rent, it could be
Yep.
rented through the FBO?
Yep, it can rent it through the FBO.
Okay. Question 9, how do you manage regional competition between airport facilities?
It's a small enough community where you have to work with all the other managers. Like I was mentioning, or with the lowering the prices, like that's going to cause some waves and upset some people. Just so that everybody has an understanding that it's not that I want to take from them, but I want to bring Fergus Falls up to that same level and then continue. Because if the manager is willing to put in the time and the effort, I don't think any other manager is going to disagree and say, you know what, he's taking customers from me because he's offering more and doing a nicer job. I mean, it's hard to be upset with somebody if they're outperforming you. If somebody's just providing a lower service at a lower cost and that's taking people away, I don't think that's the right answer. I think just open discussion with Joel Leroux, Craig Anderson, other airport managers will keep it competitive, but still a good working relationship. I don't know if that answers the question or not, but sure.
Thank you. Question 10, describe your startup plan for the first 120 days to include your staffing plan, maintenance plan, and promotion of the Fergus Falls Airport.
City website, pushing that. Facebook page, we don't have one yet, pushing that. The social media, I kind of already touched on. Lower fuel prices, I don't know what the city is going to charge for the fuel they already have in the tank, so I don't know how low I'd be able to sell it. But the lower fuel prices, the overhaul on the inside of the airport, just as far as the paint, the furniture, and then having things inside the airport to offer as far as cappuccinos, lattes, good coffee drinks for a reason for people to fly in. I wanted to have the high school, do a contest with the high school to design t-shirts for the Fergus Falls Airport, to give people a reason to fly into Fergus. Like, you're gonna get this sweet t-shirt that was designed by the high school. Just little things like that, and I envision that would be in the first 30 to 45 days. You know, it's a hard time to start pushing the airport because it's not the best time of the year for flying. So that 120 days, you can get a lot done as far as the marketing, but as far as actually getting people into the airport, if we end up with a month of crappy weather, that's gonna be hard to bring people aviation-wise into the airport. It won't affect bringing community members into the airport, but aviation will be harder to get people to fly in. And then my biggest thing is, what do the pilots that are flying out of Fergus Falls want? I want to do surveys with everybody that keep their aircraft. Do they want a mechanic there, and are they willing to commit to, you can't put a dollar amount on aviation, but are they willing to, their annuals are going to be done in Fergus Falls, or are they going to continue to use the mechanic, whether it's in Wapaton, Alexandria, or Elbow Lake? What do they want as far as that goes? What do they want for the services that are provided? And then go from there, really. I mean, because I know Bryce is, like I mentioned earlier, is working there currently, and I don't see an issue with that. Obviously, Bryce is past retirement age, but so I don't know, maybe that's not a nice thing to say, but no, Bryce is up there in age, so I know Bryce isn't going to be there forever, but it's a short-term fix or a short-term solution for the airport as far as maintenance goes.
Number 11, you are the airport manager at FBO, and a customer is upset because aviation fuel is 40 cents per gallon cheaper in Aberdeen than Fergus Falls. He's accusing you of unfair price gouging. How do you handle this scenario?
I would offer. So so the Fergus Falls is 40 cents higher than Aberdeen. I would look at their prices. I would see. I guess I'd look at their prices, and I would see. I mean, I would know what I paid for the fuel, and I would know what I could sell it for, and I would just tell them what I had to pay for the fuel, what wholesale was on it. Like if they're selling fuel for $2.40 a gallon and I had to pay $2.30 a gallon for fuel, I'll tell them what I can sell it to them for, but I can't sell it at a loss. And I'm pretty sure he would be more than happy with that if he knows that he's not being taken advantage of.
Question 12, describe your past experience and or involvement with the MnDOT Aeronautics and the FAA in regards to state and federal grant programs for airport development or any other development for that matter.
I don't have an experience with them, but my experience revolves around the relationships I've built. I have a good working relationship with Mike Haugen. He's on the Fargo Airport Advisory Board, and I have an open line to Sean Doberstein up in Fargo. So I know you don't necessarily talk to a larger airport and their manager to try to figure out what you should do to take funding from them or bring more funding to your small airport. But when you have people in mentor situations like that you can reach out to help, that's huge. I know the city works on the grants also. Yeah, my biggest thing is outreach and knowing your limitations so you know when to ask for help. Because one person can't make everything happen, but as a community, talking to the right people, you'll be able to make the best decision for the airport.
All right. Question 13, you're the airport manager, FBO, and a longtime friend of pilots, delinquent in paying his or her hangar rental by 2 months. How do you handle this scenario?
Put their hangar on the market. No, understand what the situation is, what the issue is, how you can work it out. It's just like if somebody's behind on their rent for their house. You know, usually there's a reason. If you're seeing them driving around in a new pickup truck, there might be another question, like ask Brent why I sold him the new truck. No, not to get funny on it, but you have to be real to people. Obviously, you can't lose money, you can't take losses, but at the same time, you have to be understanding of situations. And yeah, at the same time, you can't give somebody else a handout, and other people are seeing that and wondering why they're getting that for free. But yes, you just have to. Everyone's human.
Sure. Question 14, why do you want this opportunity?
I believe I can bring the community's involvement in the airport in Fergus Falls to a much higher degree or a higher level. Growing up, I never thought I'd be able to fly. I didn't come from a family that was an aviation family. I had no idea how to get into it. I kind of had this idea, and I started doing flight lessons with Dan Vigasaw, and I loved it. I didn't finish my fixed wing with him, but then the Army gave me the opportunity to go to flight school, and having that really opened my eyes to the possibilities in aviation. And I want to be able to provide that for the community. It's kind of you have a couple different prongs. You have the people that love aviation that are flying out of the Fergus Airport, and they're established in the community. You have people that just see it as a dream, and then you have people that have no idea what it is. And to be able to give the people that have no idea what it is, that they can see this is an option, there's an airport, and I can get involved in it for a reasonable price, or just in events that you don't have to pay for. And then for people that knew that they wanted to do aviation, but there's no way they'd ever be able to afford it, that there's a place that they can go for mentorship and find ways, because there's grants through the EAA. There's all kinds of money available. If people have a desire, we can find them the money to make them pilots. So, or mechanics, or ground personnel, or FBO managers. You know, everybody thinks of aviation and think of the pilot. Pilots only make up this much aviation. Everything else is what keeps the aircraft in the air, makes the aircraft go. You know, it's a huge picture for aviation.
I'm going to jump back to question 6. Describe your experience running airport operations specific to hangar rentals, fueling, aircraft rentals, flight instruction, hosting special events.
My biggest experience with the fueling and whatnot is just with the Army, as far as testing the fuel every day, sumping, the aqua glow checks, changing out the filters, and then just proper grounding and actual fueling the aircraft and making sure you're not putting contaminated fuel in the aircraft. I worked out in the Black Hills this summer doing flight tours, so that was the exact same thing as far as the fuel maintenance is concerned. But the customer service was huge for tours, because that's all you're whining and dining people and giving them the best view of Mount Rushmore that you can, and Crazy Horse and the rest of the Black Hills. So I don't have FBO management experience. I have customer service experience with the tours, and then just customer service as far as in the military, because you're flying around with these high-ranking people. And then you're also flying around these people that aren't high ranking, but everybody gets the same treatment. You take care of everybody to your utmost. Yeah, I don't know.
Flight instruction or special events?
Special events, aviation-wise, not so much. We held a candlelight ski in Fergus Falls 2 weeks ago. I was spearheading that. I brought a couple hundred people out just within the community without hard advertising. The flight instructing, I've paid for flight instructing, but I haven't done any flight instructing. Anytime I'm in the aircraft with people, I'm explaining how everything works. I'm giving them kind of an impromptu lesson on the helicopter because it's such a unique machine. But all I can say is I'm planning to get my CFI still, so that I'll be able to make that an option.
Question 8, please outline the steps necessary to complete an inspection of the airport runway lighting system.
I don't know how to inspect airplane lighting. I'd have to learn how to do that.
Okay. And we'll jump back. I didn't think we'd have time for all these questions, but we'll end up asking all of them. Question 3, you're required to maintain an accurate record of all maintenance work performed at the airport. What process would you use to facilitate the requirement?
I guess I would get together with Bryce Klinger because he knows everything there is to know about maintenance. I'd ask him his thoughts. I'd reach out to Joel LaRue, and I would ask Joel LaRue the best way to do it because he does it every day, and then formulate a system that works properly for Fergus Falls. I mean, as I said earlier, I don't have all the answers, but I know how to get the answers. And I'm not afraid to ask people for help because it's a small enough community where if you're not willing to put your own shortcomings out on the table, you're not going to last real long.
Question 5, the FAA requires frequent inspections of all runways, taxiways, taxi lanes, and the general aviation apron. What special hazards would you be looking for in this inspection?
I'd thought looking for anything that is any big cracks, anything that is loose, anything that looks like it's starting to flake or chip, any kind of slick stripes, runway stripe or lines that are starting to deteriorate and fall off, broken lights, anything that's dangling, any lights that aren't working when you are checking lights. And then just what the grass is doing on the outside, drifts, if it's dirt, if it's snow, things like that.
Do you have any final thoughts?
Do you guys have any other questions that aren't on the list?
Any clarifying or follow-up questions that any of the members have? Any of the questions? Rob? I'm good. Okay, well, thank you, Lynn.
Thank you guys. Yeah, I'm not an airport manager. I'm not an FBO manager. I'm a member of this community that loves the community. I want to see aviation thrive. And there's a reason that there's an advisory board. And if the manager isn't doing, if the manager's ideas and thoughts aren't what the advisory board and the members of the community are expecting to happen at the airport, that's how you guys are able to address the manager and to make those changes as you need. And that's kind of, I'm open to help the community. So thank you guys for the time and the opportunity.
Thank you for coming today. Thank you. All right. And sorry, Mike, I didn't see the list, or I got them out of order. Maybe, did we have a specific time that each person was given as far as who was? I thought I printed it.
Well, for 1 was Mr. Roberts, 1 to 2 is Mr. Lovett. He's here, he
Ryan
start
here?
earlier.
I think it could change the half-hour increments.
It did
every
change.
year, right?
I was told 12:30 when I.
Okay. Well, get her up then.
All right.
And we just, after hearing from other members, it seemed like an hour was a lot to dedicate. Not that we don't like to talk about aviation, so. Thanks for making the trip. I heard a plane flying. Was it you flying?
It was not me, a little too cold for me.
Okay, all right. Is that your final answer?
Yes.
Craig, what makes you the best suited candidate for managing the Fergus Falls Airport?
I'm the most experienced in terms of airport management. I've been running an FBO for several years. I've had multiple experience in multiple FBOs. I've worked for 3 different ones throughout the course of my career.
Okay. Question 2, you'll need to have other staff available to assist with operations in your absence. What qualifications will these individuals have?
Majority of them need to have experience in aviation, whether it's with an FBO or even, as a pilot. They have to understand aviation. Not everyone has to, but majority do, so that if you bring someone in that is getting their feet wet, they have people to look to.
Okay. And board members, feel free to chime in if you have questions along the way too. Question 3, you're required to maintain an accurate record of all maintenance work performed at the airport. What process would you use to facilitate this requirement?
You're talking airport maintenance, right? Like
Airport.
fixing lights and whatnot?
I believe so, yep.
3-ring grinder, and whoever performs it would document what they did every day along with their initials. And then if the task is completed or if it was not completed, what they have to do to complete it.
I think we should change that question to airport maintenance, because I interpret it the same way Wynn did, that he was thinking maintenance on aircraft or everything.
Yeah, I got that.
So we should, or ask both.
Sure. And I guess I looked at it both ways. I thought maybe, him talking about people like Bryce who's knowledgeable about the airport and Joe, I could have seen it either way, but anyway. Okay. Question 4, what are your plans to market the Fergus Falls Municipal Airport and its services?
Depends on which service. So let's talk about flight instruction. Fergus's location, you can draw from quite a wide area. All the way to the border, even past the border, up to the Fargo-Moorhead area, Wapton, Breck, east to about Ashby, Evansville, perhaps. South and north, you could go quite a ways too. I mean, we're looking at probably a 40, 50 mile radius you can pull people for flight instruction. So a lot of times for there, it's going to neighboring airports. What I do in ALEC is I go to the neighboring airports, develop relationships with the other managers, and then when someone comes to their airport inquiring about flight instruction, they send them to our location. So that would be something similar here. You could talk to the people in Wapton, Pelican Rapids, Battle Lake, other area airports, Elbow Lake, and develop those relationships with the people at the airport. As far as in the community, I think a lot of businesses in outstate Minnesota don't understand how an airport can benefit them, whether it's their clients coming in or maybe they're using their airport to go places. I hear that all the time. There's so many businesses that don't understand what a private charter is and how they can benefit their business. So I think getting that out to the community, joining the Chamber of Commerce and getting it out at their meetings is one way. Word of mouth usually reigns supreme a lot of times in aviation. But, I think just developing relationships within the community with all sorts of different industries is really going to help.
And with your marketing efforts, how are you going to measure to determine if those efforts have been successful?
It's kind of hard to put an objective measure on it. One way could be fuel sales, because it's pretty easy to tell how much fuel you sell each month, each year, etc. So based on different marketing stuff there, whether it's for local pilots, transient pilots, that's one way you could see the results of your efforts. Some of the other ways, like flight instruction, we talked about that. I mean, easy to, when you get a new client that comes in the door, you sit them down and do a consultation, ask them, how did you end up here? Were you referred? Did you see it online? Yada, yada. That way you kind of have an idea of how people are coming to you. And again, it's kind of specific to each different service you offer.
Okay. The FAA requires frequent inspections of all runways, taxiways, taxi lanes, apron, etc. What specific hazards would you be looking for in this inspection?
Snow, ice, wildlife, bits of concrete. I've seen bits of concrete before. It could pose a hazard. Sand on the runway, weeds on the runway. cracks that are growing, debris from other airplanes. Kind of limitless and stuff you can find.
Sure. Question 6, describe your experience running airport operations specific to hangar rentals, fueling, aircraft rentals, flight instruction, and ocean special events.
All right, let's break it up one by one. What's the first one? Hangar rental?
First one was hangar rentals.
In Alexandria, where most of my experience is, we have 44 T hangars, with 10 more being built as we speak. And then we have 2 heated mass hangars. So we manage those facilities for the city. Majority of it goes to the city. But as far as the T hangars, which are the most desirable, obviously the T hangar tenants have to follow their lease. And then we have a hangar waiting list. So each time a hangar comes up, call the first person on the list. If they take it, that's great. If they choose to turn it down, they can either be removed from the list or drop back to the bottom. Mass hangars, typically it's people that are short-term that want a heated mass hangar or don't fit in the T hangar, or sometimes you just get people that want that heated space. So that's that really fluctuates throughout the year. Again, a lot of them are shorter-term, month-to-month clients. But the big thing there is just having availability. You know, doesn't work well when you have full hangars. So key there is availability. What was next? Fuel?
Can I ask just really
Yeah.
quick about the hangars? Have you had any experience with airport standards and enforcing, having airworthy aircraft? And what's been your approach in Alexandria?
So that was a big problem, and it was before I was the manager, but in 2014 they overhauled the T hangar contract quite a bit. And what they did is they put provisions in there that you had to have current FAA registration, and you had to have a current airworthiness certificate, and you had to have a current annual inspection. And there's some leeway on the annual, if how time goes, sometimes you don't get around to it for a few months, or if you're in the process of building something, they'll give you leeway. But it did kick about half a dozen people out that were having their hangars basically to store their snow blowers and whatnot. So that worked to an extent. And then we require all the tenants to provide the city that proof every year. So they come in and drop off a copy of their annual, copy of their FAA registration, which you can also see online, which is I like to do. So that's how we combated that.
Okay. How about your experience fueling with aircraft rentals and instruction?
Fueling, throughout the different FBOs I've worked at, I fueled everything from a 2-stroke kit fox to a C-17. Single point, over the wing for jet fuel. Obviously avgas is all over the wing. I don't think there's really too much to add there, just plenty of experience. Flight instruction, personally, I've done 2,300 hours of flight instruction. Typically, between myself and our other instructors, we probably perform 1,500 hours of instruction per year. Just kind of averaging it over the past couple of years. Then what was the last one?
I talked about aircraft rentals.
Rentals would be similar to the instruction. A lot of people that are taking, a lot of the rentals are from the students. Not often do you have people rent it. You might get a person that rents it once every other month or once a month, but a lot of active pilots are either going to buy something or join a club. But I think the key there is just availability.
What about hosting special events?
I've done several. I always encourage our different groups at the airport to host them, just because I can't do everything. But I have hosted your typical flying breakfasts. I've tried the luncheon type deal before, pork chops. I've hosted hangar dances before, World War II themed, and then just kind of your 80s cover band also. So I've kind of ran the gamut on events, but I always encourage other groups to participate as well, whether it's EAA or Civil Air Patrol or whatnot.
Question 7, what are some of the optional services you're able to provide to airport customers?
Optional services, Talked about the charter earlier. We do have a charter certificate, so that's ready to go. If someone called, we can do a charter. I'm trying to think of what was on the list there. I know catering was on there, which isn't a problem. Catering is usually on request from corporate jets and whatnot. Not often does that occur, but it's possible. What else did we talk about? Talked about flight instruction. Talked about aircraft rental and flight instruction. Fuel and oil sales are kind of one and the same. Line service is obviously a requirement. And then A&P mechanic. So the plan with the A&P mechanic is I have one, possibly two guys that work for a freight company up in Fargo. They work nights, so they are available your typical business hours on demand. So if something was needed, they can run down from Fargo and take care of the maintenance services. So it'd be kind of like a retainer on demand type thing.
Okay. Question 8, please outline the steps necessary to complete an inspection of the airport runway lighting system.
So what we typically do for a runway check is we have a truck with flashing lights on it. So we'll key up the lights on the runway. So you got them on high intensity. Drive down each side of the runway. And there's 2 runways, so I suppose you'd be driving down each runway twice. Take note of any lights that are not working. And at the completion of your inspection, go back to those lights. A lot of times it's just a bulb that needs to be replaced, so go ahead, see if you can change out the bulb. If it's deeper than a bulb issue, if it's a wiring issue, then it gets a little trickier in evaluating, okay, is this something we can do ourselves? Do we have to call the electrician to do it? The approach lighting system, it's different for every system, but depending how many lights are out, you might have to put a note out that it's inoperative. Your typical runway edge lights, it's not, you don't have to do that for, but again, depending on the approach lighting criteria or the type, you might have to put a note out for it.
Okay. How do you manage regional competition between airport facilities?
Every airport kind of has its niche, is what I found. And in upstate Minnesota, it seems to be a lot more working together rather than working against each other. As an example, both Wilmer and Benson do really well in Moonies. They do a lot of maintenance on Moonies. So for people that own Moonies in the area, you usually recommend them to go there to get their maintenance done. And in return, when they have someone that buys a Moonie, they call us to do the transition training for those new pilots in their new airplane. Elbow Lake is another one. They've done great on the helicopters. It's kind of their niche. So, I understand the competition, and I think that kind of comes in from the fuel sales. But as far as services provided, a lot of times it's working with other parties and working against them. Fuel sales can be tricky because unlike car gas, aviation prices are all over the board. And if you're a pilot, you've probably seen that. FBOs make money off of selling fuel. Then you get other towns where it's there just as a service. So I know in the Alex area, obviously we're trying to make money off of fuel on the avgas and jet fuel. You got towns by us, Glenwood, Long Prairie. Most cities just put it out at cost or maybe 10 or 20 cents above cost. So it gets a little trickier there figuring out how do we compete against those towns where they're offering this really cheap fuel but really not much else. And what we found is really just getting a lot of buy-in from your local tenants and even tenants at neighboring airports. Why would they want to come to you instead of somewhere else where the fuel is cheaper? And I mean, those other airports probably don't have hot coffee brewing for them. They don't have anyone to talk to. If it's negative 15 like this morning, there's nobody to help start their airplane or maybe put it in a heated hangar. So it's kind of providing those ancillary services to get them to buy in and support your airport more than these other airports where there might be cheaper services.
Okay. Describe your startup plan for the first 120 days to include your staffing plan, maintenance plan, and the promotion of the Fergus Falls Municipal Airport.
Staffing plan was laid out in the proposal. Staffed Monday through Friday, 8 to 6. Weekends, as of now, in the plan, it's 9 to 1. But 120 days will kind of move us into that spring and summer time frame. So weekend hours might have to change just based on, demand. But
And was your weekend, was it just Saturday or Saturday, Sunday?
Saturday 9 to 1. But, as we move into the summer, I'm thinking that has to be extended, like a full day on Saturday, like 9 to 5. And then Sunday would be discussed too, again, just based on availability. There's a lot of times, like this past weekend, where we have staff in Alec that go 16 hours without seeing another soul, just because, again, no one's flying when it's -20. But that would be a staffing plan. Other plans you asked, you said promotional plan. Promotional plan with the airport in general, like I said, I'm big into the Chamber of Commerce and a lot of the stuff that they do. I'm a big supporter. So I would get involved in the Chamber of Commerce, go into their member meetings, promoting the airport there. Other methods, the first 120 days kind of moves us into that spring, summer time frame. I know EAA does their annual pancake breakfast at the airport, which I hope they do this year, and I would be 100% supportive of it. I'm a huge EAA supporter in general. So whatever we can do to help make that happen and make it as good as it could be, that's a huge thing for the airport. And even more than just serving pancakes, kind of making it an open house, making sure people can see all the equipment at the airport, from the tugs to the snow plows. It's a huge day for the airport in general. So those are a few ideas. Is there anything else in there?
It's kind of your 121 days staffing plan, maintenance plan, and promotion of the Fergus Falls Airport.
Maintenance I kind of discussed. I got a couple of guys on retainer, more or less, so if need be, they'll come down. They're certified AMPs working on their IA certificate, so they can't do annuals, but they can do basically everything else underneath that.
You're the airport manager. FBO and a customer is upset because aviation fuel is 40 cents per gallon cheaper in Aberdeen than it is Fergus Falls. He's accusing you of unfair price gouging. How would you handle the scenario?
Like I talked about earlier, it's a wide range of prices. What I would do, a lot of pilots are using some type of app, whether it's ForeFlight, Garmin Pilot, yada yada. You can pull up right on there on the map every airport and their pricing. So I would sit down with him, pull up that map, and we can take a look together. We can look at our prices compared to Aberdeen. When I'm thinking of competitive our competition in neighboring airports, I'm talking the Wahpetons, the Elbow Lakes, yada yada. Maybe in Aberdeen, they have to have their prices a lot lower, which they probably do because there's 3 FBOs there, so they're probably always beating each other up over it. Versus in Fergus, again, like I said, we're trying to keep the company afloat by selling fuel, so we have to have a little higher price in these neighboring airports, or maybe an airport where they're constantly fighting other competition on fuel. But again, if someone accuses of gouging, I don't think you'd have to look far and wide to see a lot of examples that would be above and beyond what we'd be charging. Look at the Fargo, the Grand Forks, the Twin Cities area, and again, if it's a difference of 40 cents, it'd be pretty easy to find differences of dollars above that, other places within the state.
Describe your past experience and/or involvement with MnDOT Aeronautics and the FAA in regard to state and federal grant programs for airport development projects.
I worked with MnDOT, I guess for 3 years since I've been the manager there. They've had a lot of turnover in the past 3 years, so a lot of the folks I started working with are no longer there, have moved on. But I believe it's the same in Fergus. Dan Berner's a representative as far as acquiring grants in Alexandria. I'm pretty sure he's Fergus Falls' representative as well. So I've been working with Dan for several years, developed a relationship there. It's a pretty streamlined process. Every year MnDOT wants an update of your CIP, your capital improvement plan. So we get that to them every fall when they ask for it. Keep in touch with them a few times a year to make sure, hey, are we going to have money to fund this project we have slated on our CIP? Do you think we should push it back a year to help you guys out? How can we help you out so you can help us out? I volunteer with MnDOT every year at Oshkosh. They do a booth down at Oshkosh. And they like to have ambassadors there from different airports. So I've always gone down in the past and spent a week with them, volunteer a few hours a day at their booth, just promoting aviation in Minnesota, and obviously kind of pushing Alexandria. So assuming that Oshkosh happens, and assuming that you'd be in the airport management position, I'd be doing it for both cities. And it's a pretty cool opportunity because what I do in ALEC is I go to the Chamber of Commerce, get a bunch of their visitor guides, and just hand them out to people, kind of talk up the area. And you're getting people from all over the country, really all over the world, that come up and talk to you. So it's a really good marketing opportunity for the area and get a lot of these, because people are always looking for places to fly. If you fly for fun, you get that. You're always looking for a new place to go. So as far as the FAA, I've been in a few meetings at the airport district office in the cities. They've been short-staffed for a while, but we've had a few situations in ALEC where I've needed some clarification on them, and they've always delivered. And I've been impressed with their service.
You're the airport manager, FBO, and a longtime friend or pilot's delinquent in paying his or her hangar rent by 2 months. How would you handle this scenario?
Well, they'd probably get a letter that says you got 30 days to pay, and it says if you don't have the payment within 30 days, you're getting, what's the word? Kicked out. There's one formal word for it, but you're getting kicked out. So,
Evicted?
Evicted, there you go, thank you.
The governor doesn't have a eviction moratorium on aircraft?
Not to my knowledge, but yeah, I don't like favorites. I don't play favorites, and I think if you have friends or pals or whatever at the airport, they're obviously going to be there to support you. And if they're not doing their part and paying their hangar rent, they're not really someone supporting them. So
Sure.
not concerned.
Okay. Why do you want this opportunity, Craig?
A few reasons. Number one, it's we provide a service I think Fergus could use. You're looking for FBOs to come in. We have something to provide you that I think would benefit the city and the whole county. I have a lot of clients up here at the Fergus Falls Airport, and I'd like to establish more relationship with them and see them more often. And I've been up here doing flight instruction with them before. I've flown for Otter Tail Power before, and I have a fairly good grasp of the airport, and just really think that I can breathe some life into it.
Any final thoughts?
I don't believe so.
Anyone have any questions for Craig?
Yeah, a couple of follow-ups. So, first on the mechanic, the guys that come down from Fargo, so what was the arrangement for the based aircraft if they can't sign off on annual? How do you plan to work out? They have to go somewhere else to do the annual end?
Yeah, and we're not going to promote that you can do your annual here. So there hopefully shouldn't be any confusion in people thinking that they can get their annual done there. That might be something in the future as once these guys get their IA certification, but I have to be very clear that wherever you go do your annuals, keep doing that, because we don't have the capability of doing that.
But you're doing annuals at ALEC now?
There's a separate business. Our business doesn't do maintenance. There's a separate business that does.
That's still vendors?
Correct.
And then similar question on the flight instruction. So if there's no instructor living here, how do you make that economically work? So somebody's got to spend 2 hours on the road to come up here, and you bunch the lessons, and then at the same time, if you could address, there's no rental or instruction aircraft available here. So if somebody walks in off the street and says, I want to learn to fly, you can't really afford to deadhead an airplane from Alexandria up here and back for 45 minutes of flight time. So how do you work that?
The long term is to have an aircraft based here. And that's in the proposal. I think I had 6 to 12 months, and I'd hope it's sooner than that. I just want to give myself time. But the plan is to have 4-seat airplane based here. Up until that point, you're right. It takes some shuffling back and forth, and fortunately, it's our slowest time of the year, so that can happen. We can have an airplane kept up in Fergus for a while, and if it was needed, we can flip-flop them back and forth. Instructor-wise, I would like to have someone that lives in Fergus. And I'm not going to hire anyone until we have a contract in front of us, but I think that's really important to have someone right there in Fergus that can be there most days or every day, rather than having to dedicate 1 or 2 days a week to drive up from Alec to Fargo or whatever it is.
Thanks.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Craig.
Yeah, thank you.
Sandra?
Thanks.
Yes. What makes you and Stacy best suited candidates for managing the Fergus Falls Airport?
Well, man, there's a lot of thought there. The airport is sitting on the land of my grandmother-in-law's farm, so it goes back a very long way for me. It's the first place that I came to, and I came to the United States to learn how to fly. So it's this airport that I learned how to fly. So I have my memories start right from day one, right there. And when I first got here, I wanted to go to the airport, and I loved being at the airport. And I spent the majority of my days out there from morning to bothering Randy. I was out there running around. And over the years, as our aviation careers progressed, I noticed that I did not love going back out to the airport anymore, and that I missed just little bits and pieces of feeling at home in a place that I used to feel at home. So now I see that there's obviously an opportunity to do something with it. So what makes it suitable is that we have a drive that's beyond any others. I'm convinced of that. In our hearts, we want the airport to succeed. Our business involvement in Fergus Falls is more than any other candidate would have. So for us to marry a love for aviation, the community, and our whole lives being here, so everything we do and everything we say would arguably propel the airport to be a better place. So it's just what makes it suitable. It's all of our experience combined: commercial aviation experience, property management experience, community involvement, business operation in Fergus Falls. It's everything combined. Okay. Yeah.
You'll need to have other staff available to assist with operations in your absence. What qualifications will these individuals have?
I suppose it'd be job depending. So if it's somebody just working the line, I don't think, if they have an aviation background, it'd be great, but if they don't have it, it's teachable. So fueling aircraft, it's nice to have experience, but you can teach somebody how to do a proper job. If it's a customer service issue, somebody sitting behind the desk, then again, it's the same thing. It's great to have customer service experience, but if somebody can smile and answer a phone and be friendly, then that's a good qualification. If you're talking about maintenance, then obviously they have to have a maintenance background. You can't be a new person just sitting around there. So I think that question is a little bit hard to answer because it depends on each job function that we'd be after.
You're required to maintain an accurate record of all maintenance work performed at the airport. What process will you use to facilitate the requirement?
A general log. I mean, there should be a general log for everything airport related, and a daily meeting to make sure that entries are going in, what those entries mean, and then a follow-up process to make sure that whatever got entered actually got addressed, and if not, what we have to do to get it done. So just a log and daily activity to make sure that that log is maintained.
What are your plans to market the Fergus Falls Airport and its services, and how will you measure to determine if these efforts have been successful?
The measurement of success, I think, it really comes down to revenue. If revenue is coming in the door and it's increasing on a monthly basis, it must mean that activity is there, and people are using the airport. So if revenue is up, that means daily use is up, that means people are using the airport, it means airplanes are coming in. So I think revenue is the best measurement to see if it's going up. It's not necessarily the best measurement to see if it's going well. That return customers would indicate that. I mean, as long as people are coming back, then it's a good thing. So daily operations, what is it, about 8,400 a year? It should be triple that in Fergus Falls at least. So I'd say if they keep going up, the higher we can get them would be the best measure of that it's going the way it should be. Was that a two-part question you asked me? Was that?
No, well, how will you measure to determine if these efforts have been successful?
Okay.
But I guess, basically. The FAA requires frequent inspections of all runways, taxiways, taxi lanes, and the general aviation apron. What specific hazards would you be looking for?
All the good stuff that we see out there, I suppose, but yeah, just the old, snow, ice, any weather-related things, sand, foreign debris, so fog. What do we all find out there? Nails, screws, lip gloss, anything. So anything, and then tall grasses, wildlife. Depending on which part of the airport we're looking, but anything that can get sucked into an engine or cause a disturbance upon landing.
Describe your experience running airport operations specific to hangar rentals, fueling, aircraft rentals, flight instruction, and hosting events.
Well, so we don't have direct experience operating an airport because we've never done that before. So that's the short answer. But been in and around the airport for so many years that we've done all of those things. As far as fueling goes, that happens all the time because we're pilots and we do fuel our own airplanes. So it seems to be going hand in hand. But organizing events, and no specific airport events, but we do organize customer appreciation days across our businesses, and we do, we do event planning all the time. So it's a very natural thing. It seems like we can just easily marry our experience in outside of the aviation community to what we do inside of the aviation community, and all of those things would be put together, I think.
What are some of the optional services you are able to provide to airport customers?
Fergus needs rental cars, so we're definitely willing to commit to rental cars within 30 days. Fergus needs maintenance. I don't even consider it an optional service. So as of right now, we have a commitment from Detroit Lakes Aviation to come down here, starting with 1 day a week. It'll be the same day, and then moving it up as needed from there. That's only an interim solution. We would like to see just a full-time maintenance facility, and if we cannot contract that out, then we will start it ourselves. Either way, that's the end goal. That is just maintenance, full-time on the field, 5 days a week, not going anywhere else. Annuals inside of Fergus. Everything happens in Fergus Falls.
Please outline the steps necessary to complete an inspection of the airport runway lighting system.
Yeah, I'd have to look that up. I don't know what the procedure is. I can't tell you. I can tell you when it's not working because we noticed that on the way in. But whatever the procedure is, these are details that there is a procedure. Whatever the FAA or whoever requires it, we just follow it accordingly.
How do you manage regional competition between airport facilities?
So Fergus Falls to me is number one. As far as the competition goes, I view them all as competition. I think we have to do whatever we can to drive traffic to Fergus Falls. So first things first, fuel pricing is a key issue no matter what. So fuel contracting is arguably the most important. If there is a fuel contract price in Fergus Falls, then I think more traffic would come to Fergus Falls. So as long as we get the fuel price under control, then I think a lot of the rest of the pieces will fall into place. But I consider we have to do everything we can to provide as many services as possible, the best way possible, to make sure traffic comes to Fergus Falls. If they don't go to other airports, that's a bummer, but this has to be number one.
Describe your startup plan for the first 120 days to include your staffing plan, maintenance plan, and promotion of the Fergus Falls Airport.
So staffing, wintertime, 8 to 5, 7 days a week. Summertime, 7 to 7, or more is needed, just 7 days a week. I don't think that Fergus Falls Airport should be closed any day. I don't think it should have part-time hours any day. I think somebody should just be there and operate the airport, and just make sure that we can handle whatever comes our way. If there are quiet days and there's no people flying in, that's fine. There's plenty to do to make sure that the facility is up to par for when that does happen. So that's the staffing. The first 120 days, aircraft rental will be there. Flight instruction will be on day one. Maintenance will be on day one. And the rest, I'm trying to think if I'm missing something, but I think those are the key issues right there. Promotion, fuel contracting goes hand in hand with that. So if we have a fuel contract like through an organization like CAA, that would be our first goal. It'll take 90 days to do that. We're already in talks with them to make sure we can do this. Everything is set up to do that. We just have to make sure that we're in a position that we should be asking for it. So CAA pricing will be in place either way. And then once that happens, it automatically attracts people that fly over Fergus because you have fuel pricing, it's a place to land. With the runway availability in Fergus Falls, especially the long runways that we have and the wide open space around it, it makes an ideal airport to actually land, refuel for any crossing traffic. Other promotion, obviously social media is something has to happen. I mean, social media, it needs all kinds of attention. The social media bit, we do that across all of our businesses. It's an easy fit for us. It makes sense. I mean, we would promote it like we do any other business. Community involvement is another big piece of that. So promoting a business to get kids involved, or younger people through the school system is a key for future promotion. And then an air show. Air show needs to come back to Fergus. It needs an air show. Obviously with COVID, that's a little bit hard to plan out, but as soon as that lets up and if we are allowed to do something, then we will put an air show back in play right away.
You're the airport manager. A customer is upset because gas is 40 cents a gallon cheaper here than it is in Aberdeen. He's accusing you of price gouging. How would you handle this scenario?
I would give him the same price that he found elsewhere, show him that he can do a better job than most any other place through service, ask him how he found that information, tell him we'll review it, and hopefully on his next visit we can work something out that's a little bit more suitable for everybody.
Describe your past experience and your involvement with MnDOT Aeronautics and the FAA in regard to state and federal grant programs for airport development projects.
Yeah, we don't have any experience with that.
You're the airport manager. FDO, a longtime friend or pilot's delinquent in paying his or her hangar rent by 2 months. How would you handle this scenario?
That's a little tricky. If it's a longtime friend, I would like to think that I already know about the problem, and I would likely just help them out and pay it. But that would be at my expense. And if there's no end in sight for the trouble, then eventually we'd have to vacate. But there's no, I mean, if the question is a friend, right? Yeah, a friend. If it's specifically a friend, then I think friends need to work together. So I would not be, it would just be paid.
And as long as we're talking about hangars, one clarifying question from earlier that we had asked Craig as well, talking about, do you have any experience with airport standard plans and how would you handle the scenario of hangars and making sure that hangars are only being occupied by airworthy aircraft?
So we've been thinking about this a bit, and it seems like right away, if there are non-airworthy occupants, I think the rent should double or even triple for those people. Give them a little time to sort that out. But I think there should be a system in place where they automatically get pushed out, so we don't have to necessarily evict the person right away. But if we just up their rent accordingly, hopefully drive them to make a different choice in the future, and then make room for airworthy occupants.
Why do you want this opportunity?
I think we covered that a little bit in the beginning. The airport needs to be better. Its economic impact to Fergus Falls can be quite tremendous. If we can keep everything local in Fergus Falls, so if we have all the services, that means all the dollars stay in Fergus. We can attract more business to Fergus because it would be accessible. You know, the airport has so many opportunities that it can bring that just having it operational, fully functional, and desirable would automatically draw other people to want to use it. So it just needs to be part of the community. And for us, this is, I mean, that's every day we're involved with business in Fergus Falls. That's all we do. And flying is a passion. So to have those two combined and make sure that Fergus can be used as the perfect place to go, it would be quite ideal for everyone, and including us.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Sandra, Andy?
Yeah, what's your plan? I know the other two candidates mentioned it for how much, what would your physical presence be at the airport and Stacy's? How many days a week?
So with us, you know, you get two people, which I think is quite a benefit. So one of us would be there regardless. I think it's actually perfect that there's two of us because it allows us to focus on everything and make sure that somebody is always there. So we would see no reason not to be there. It'd just be an everyday thing. And we can actually, when we say every day, one of us would be there 7 days a week, at least for the very, if we're talking 120 day startup plan, for the first 120 days, we would just be there to make sure everything is going according to plan.
Other questions? All right, thank you, Sandra.
Thank you.
See, we've got two guests here. Would either of you like to speak? Any public comment? Brent or Randy?
I do have a question, but not for the applicants. How are we, I've been flying on this airport since 1988, where the numbers I'm coming up with, what I hear is 23 and 24 movements daily. I don't ever recall any numbers like that. Where are we coming up with those numbers, and how is that being determined?
I would guess probably off the AirNav website, and does that come from the, Craig, you probably know the best, from the aeronautics department, they survey it?
Yeah, there's third-party sites like airnav.com that have that a lot of people get it from. But that comes from the state of Minnesota. They have some program that they enter it into. I don't know how the state of Minnesota gets the info. Some airports, if they're trying to do a study, will actually put this little device next to the Unicom. And every time someone talks to the Unicom, I think they equal like every 3 radio calls as a operation or something like that. That's how they estimate it.
Okay.
But, you know, they're not doing that everywhere. So I don't really know how they come up with the numbers, you know, on an annual basis for all
Sure.
these smaller airports.
Okay. Just curious.
Boy, if you don't know it, then how are we supposed to know it?
Yeah,
Brent.
Craig, we've never met. I'm Brent Nelson of Good Nelson Auto Center in town. And I've spent my entire life, I was flight instructing by the time I was 19 years old. I crop sprayed for 13, 14 years. I flew charter. And then I got in the car business back in 1992, which kind of took me out of the aviation a little bit. I still keep an airplane at the airport. But back in the years when I was aerial spraying, I started. My main site was here in South Dakota. Then I started a branch site up in northern North Dakota, another branch site out in eastern South Dakota. And my concern is when I was listening to you, it sounds to me like you're going to continue to be the airport manager in Alexandria. And this is going to be kind of run as a satellite operation for you? Is that a fair statement?
I mean, there would be 2 locations. And you know, as far as satellites, it's based on demand. You know, if Fergus is busier with flight instruction and charter service, well, I wouldn't really consider it satellite because they'd be busier, right? And by default, that'd be the primary. So yeah, I live in Alexandria. The invoicing, all that stuff would be done in Alexandria with their other staff that does that. But you know, I think it just depends on how busy each airport is.
You know, and the reason I bring this up is because from my experience, my own experience in the aerial spraying side of things, I know that when I reached out to these other communities, it really, I couldn't commit myself to them because I was getting pretty thin, and they never did get to the level of service that I was able to provide where I was at, where I was grounded. And I would be a little concerned when I hear that with coming into Fergus, because I know what it's going to take to get this airport off the ground, and the FBO business has been tough for a long, long, long time. But it's going to take a lot of grinding, and it's going to take a lot of effort, and it's going to be somebody with their boots on the ground in Fergus Falls. And I'm just here because I really want to see this airport back to, it's been rough in the last couple of years, ever since I got here. And I think we got to have somebody that comes in here with their primary focus is on getting this thing up and running and working again.
Sure.
That's kind of why I'm here.
Yeah. You know, I don't know if you had a chance to read our proposal, but in the proposal, I did add a comment in there where, yeah, I'd be the listed airport manager. But, you know, if someone comes along that, you know, kind of like I did in Alec, I came along when I was 23. And just like you're saying, boots on the ground, like that's all I did. Like I spent 7 days a week out there. There's days there are months I wouldn't take a day off. But if there's an individual like that, I mean, by all means, I'd love to get them trained up to the point where they can be a good airport manager and have a good relationship with the state and FAA, and they go ahead and fill that role as airport manager. So, I'm not saying that I'm going to be the one to run both forever, but again, to get it off the ground and get going, I would. And if the right individual comes along, by all means, I'd be interested in that.
Thank you.
Randy.
Brent jogged my memory here a little bit. So this is probably for Sander. And I hate to bring up past issues with past FBOs, but when Brent talked about running other businesses, I know you guys run rental units in a couple businesses. Previous FBO had the same situation, had a passion for aviation, ran several businesses in town. How do you, his primary focus was running his other businesses out of that airport office. How do you remedy that with all the businesses? Because he kind of had the same situation. So for me, being the chief pilot, I was the chief pilot for Otter Tail Park. It was not a very good experience.
I understand that. For me, that answer is so easy because my main focus in any of our businesses is to make sure we have people that are running the businesses. So we have managers in place across the board. My involvement is to make sure that they do their job, but it's not like a daily thing. I don't want to be at those businesses every day. I choose where I am every day. And this specifically about the airport, if the airport allows me to be there every day, I want to be there every day. And we're not looking for a different airport manager. We're looking for us to manage the airport and to actually do that job. So yeah, we have a bar, sure. That bar is managed. I'm not there managing the bar. I don't hire anybody there. I'm just in the background making sure the business runs. That's my job. And that goes for every business we have. So it's a different animal. In this case, both Stacy and I want to manage the airport. It's something that needs to happen. Fergus needs to have a better airport, or at least an airport that is user-friendly for everyone. So yeah, it's different. We could start 10 more businesses tomorrow, but I'm not there. I'm just making sure they start up. That's my job. The airport is a different feeling for me.
Good.
Ryan? Yes. You want to come up and we can ask you some questions? Oh, it sounds wonderful. Well, you don't have to answer.
Maybe I won't. I haven't done a job interview in 20 years. So this might be interesting.
Sure. Well, it's about 14 questions. What makes you the best suited candidate for managing the Fergus Falls Airport?
I would say I'm there. I mean, I'm pretty much there, sun up to sundown in summer. Pretty much there all winter.
You'll need to have other staff available to assist with operations in your absence. What qualifications will these individuals have?
Well, I should have a aviation background, of course. My hope is right now I could use a couple guys full time, but I just don't have enough hours. So I think a couple guys to supplement my business and then help run the airport, I think would fit in really nicely.
You're required to maintain an accurate record of all maintenance work performed at the airport, the physical airport itself. What process would you use to facilitate this requirement?
Whatever they've been doing in the past, I guess they'd probably talk to Kurt and get that figured out. If there's anything we need to do better, we'll do it better.
What are your plans to market the Fergus Falls Airport and its services, and how will you measure to determine if these efforts have been successful?
Advertising, radio, newspaper, try to get people from out of town. Magazines, put ads in, Facebook, a lot of that digital marketing is so cheap. One thing I don't think I've ever seen an ad for the airport, ever, anywhere. I've lived here 15 years. I think that's something that really needs to change.
How are you going to measure if those efforts have been successful?
Well, I think you kind of know. Advertising my own business. Anytime I've done advertising, I've had people mention the ad, or sometimes when we do flyers, it's neat to see them bring the flyer into the office, stuff like that.
The FAA requires frequent inspections of all runways, taxiways, taxi lanes, and the general aviation apron. What specific hazards would you look for in this inspection?
All the required. We have to. I'll be honest with you. I need a little education and figure that out. Direct and figure out what we need to do.
Describe your experience running airport operations specific to hangar rentals, fueling, aircraft rentals, flight instruction, and hosting special events.
I worked at the Fergus Jet Center for 2 years during college. Pretty much paid for my flight instruction there, and did all that kind of stuff. Took care of hangars, fueled airplanes, marshal airplanes, anything from 152s to 747s.
Hosting special events, any flight instruction?
Not really a lot of experience there. I did help with the Fargo Air Show at the Jet Center there. Did some of that stuff.
What are some of the optional services you're able to provide airport customers?
I have a fuel truck we could use at a single point for jet fuel. I would like to bring that up here. It's currently down in Wheaton. So that might make things a little easier for bigger aircraft on the ramp. We don't have to move these fuel pumps. I also have a start cart for turbine aircraft that we could use on day one. What was the question? Optional.
What are some of the optional services you're able to provide airport customers?
We could do catering. My office out at the airport has a small kitchen in it now, so that would help with that.
Please outline the steps necessary to complete an inspection of the airport runway lighting system.
There again, we'd have to look that up and do what we've done in the past. And move on everything.
How do you manage regional competition between airport facilities?
Fuel price is probably a big one. I'd like to keep prices down if we can. And service, you can pay for service or a low price. Right? Fuel price should reflect that. Possibly have either full service price or a self-service price.
Describe your startup plan for the first 120 days to include your staffing plan, maintenance plan, and the promotion of the Fergus Falls Municipal Airport.
I think we'd start with getting Bryce in the hangar again, doing some wrenching, and then ideally I'd like to find an EMP to work along with Bryce that maybe would also help on the crop dusting side of things. That'd be my ideal candidate. Then perhaps eventually kind of take over an EMP service there full time. Otherwise, I would definitely buy an aircraft right away, and that's one of the draws for me of doing the airport manager is I'd love to have a 4-seat aircraft for myself to have available. So I'd like to offer flight instruction, airplane rides.
You're the airport manager, FBO, and a customer is upset because aviation fuel is 40 cents cheaper in Aberdeen than it is in Fergus Falls. He's accusing you of unfair price gouging. How would you handle this scenario?
Work with them on it, say, hey, we could do self-service for cheaper. If you want to pump your own fuel, if we're pumping it for them. That's the idea.
Describe your past experience and or involvement with the MnDOT Aeronautics and the FAA in regards to state and federal grant programs for airport development projects.
I don't have any experience there. I did build a facility out there, so that kind of gave me some experience with all the ins and outs of that. Painful process, I'll never forget.
Too close to the VOR.
Yeah, you are.
You're the airport manager, FBO, and a longtime friend or pilot is delinquent in paying his or her hangar rent by 2 months. How would you handle this scenario?
Send Moose and Rocco out to his house. I don't know. That's a tough one. I do get a few of those at the spray business. I offer some terms with them, I guess. Oh, that's a tricky one.
And going back to the hangar, a question we asked also, one issue with most airports anywhere is the fact that there are a lot of unairworthy aircraft taking up valuable hangar space.
I've got 2 of them.
Okay. So how would you deal with people like yourself?
Like myself, thanks. So we'd have to look at the regs. One of my ideas for here would be you have to have an airworthy aircraft in the hangar or based at the Fergus Falls Airport. If I'm not mistaken, a lot of your funding is based on how many aircraft are there, correct? Or at the airport?
Well, that went out.
They go in and out. Well, you guys are talking about that. How do they determine that? That's something we need to look at. But the city-owned hangars, people should definitely have an airworthy aircraft in, I feel. I suspect that a lot of that comes from the survey. Everybody that owns an aircraft gets a survey, and they mark down where the aircraft is based. I have 3 registered aircraft out there, and so all 3 of those are based at Fergus Falls, and that's partly how the airport gets its funding. But these hangars need to have an airworthy aircraft associated with it, in my opinion.
Brian, why do you want this opportunity?
I think it's a good fit. Like I said earlier, I'm there. It would be a good fit with my business currently.
Any final thoughts?
Not really.
Any questions from the board?
Well, that was painless.
All right, thank you.
Come on, Randy, ask me a question.
You haven't left yet.
How many hours a week would you give Randy to help vacuum and maintain the king yard?
I'm looking for work.
All right, thanks.
That's all there is to it?
That's it. So I think we've visited with all the candidates. Any final public comment, or you guys kind of? And then Mike, it's just up to us to kind of discuss and debate and provide a recommendation, or?
That's good. You guys can have a meeting past this point and discuss your questions, concerns, comments.
Okay,
And that's also open.
that's open, okay, all right.
Will that be posted, or the meeting? Is it, or are you having a regular airport?
I would suggest we do it now.
Yeah, we're gonna talk right now.
Oh.
Yep, we're gonna walk away with a decision today, I think is the goal.
Oh, it is.
So should we all just score? And
Yeah, so I don't know, everyone wants a little time to score and. Let's sit up here.
Is this 6 feet?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know, I didn't give a value for a lot of them. Do we need to have a value?
Just if it helps you.
yeah, I'm adding my envelope so you guys might talk.
I'm curious, I did score, I'm curious how it comes out.
Just use it for now.
Just a point of reference on scoring. you know, you might score high and one of your other board members scored low. The main thing is that you're consistent in your metrics and your mind there. Assign that 1, 3, or 5. You can also use a 2 or 4 falling in between those.
Are you wanting us to turn these into you, or you want?
No, this is your business. I'm just here to still make.
If I get the right numbers.
Was it turbo?
It's not the single determining factor, of course, it's just another reference.
Sure.
Are you guys taking public comment, or can I leave?
Are we what?
Are you having you want a closed meeting here? Or?
No, this is all.
It's open. It's open.
Do you mind if I just give you one comment? I need to run to another Zoom meeting that
Sure.
I'm missing. But one thing, when I ask this question here, I know you guys are an advisory board, but you guys have to make the airport understand, make the city commission understand how important this is. And all I'm going to tell you, I know, besides the guy from Alexandria, I know everybody in here, but I want to tell you this, that if somebody doesn't give this 100% effort and have their boots on the ground in Fergus Falls, part of this community, that deal's never going to work. And I'll guarantee you, I'll lay everything I own on that fact, unless somebody totally gets committed to being here. This can't be run as a satellite type operation or an offhand something else to do because I want to pick up a few extra bucks. They gotta have a huge passion, and they gotta decide, I'm gonna be here, I'm gonna have my feet on the ground doing it. That's all I really am here to tell you, and I just hope you would communicate that between yourself and then on to the city commission. So.
Sure. Thank you, Brent, for your wise words.
I'll get out of here. No, I've done this stuff before. I know what happens. So, okay.
Thanks, Brent.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Thanks, Brent. Have a good day.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't do it as I went.
Oh,
Go ahead.
well, I was just gonna ask if I could, I have a couple of questions I wanted to talk about within this.
Sure.
While we're at that, if that works. Do we wanna put some type of weighted scale versus local versus if they're gonna be there, or if this is gonna be a multiple station, or how to do that? Because I think Brent brings up some pretty valid points on that. We could just, I mean, I'd like to get a dialogue started on kind of how we want to move.
Yeah, I would agree. I think I'm probably one of the only non-pilots in here, so I'd love to hear feedback on his flying into an airport with someone who has management experience versus doesn't. It's obviously probably obvious, so I'd like to talk about that a little bit too, because they're so different.
I'm at whatever point I'm
Go
willing to
ahead,
go
Steve.
straight to
Yeah.
what I think.
I think, go ahead.
If you want. And I am truly open-minded on this, but I was surprised. I put, like Mike says, the numbers are helpful, they're not determinative. It surprised me that pretty much when I added up the numbers that I gave, it pretty much would have been the way I ranked them if there hadn't been numbers. So that was interesting, and
Sure.
I can tell you what those are. I would, at this point, rule out Alexandria Aviation for kind of the Brent reasons. I think there are a couple of reasons that their proposal is a little different than the others, maybe. I liked Craig and think he would do an excellent job, so if he winds up being the choice, that's not a bad thing, but I do think the point about the airport manager who is a Fergus Falls airport manager 100% of the time, and that's his or her, I guess his in this case, job, to be there 24/7 if needed, and to have an owner do it rather than find somebody to hire. Any of us that have been in business, we know that sometimes it works, but often it's not the same as if the owner is personally involved or not. So there's that issue. And then it seems to me like he costs twice as much because we get half of his time for the same price as we get at least full-time from the other three. And in fact, in the Sandra and Stacy case, we get 2 full-time owner managers. So that's and more hours of operation. But the other thing that surprised me a little bit from the interview, and I thought the interviews were valuable because the picture's clear to me. I thought he does, Alexander Aviation, I'd forgotten they're not in the maintenance business at all, not even in Alexandria. And I think maintenance and flight instruction to me are 2 really key drivers for the airport. I mean, you can promote all you want, but if you still got to fly your airplane to Elbow Lake to get an annual, it's just not the same. Or you get flight instruction here 1 day a week or whatever, because that's when the instructor schedules everything, and it's not good weather that day, and then you miss a week. So there's no maintenance under that plan. There's no aircraft for training. There will be eventually, probably. No full-time CFI. And so despite the fact that I liked him and I think he's a good manager, that was the easiest thing that I could do mentally, is to rule him out. Now then you got to pick between the other 3. That's harder because we've got, I think the consultant said, we have this blessing of 4 great candidates at a time when it's hard to get FBOs, and so any of the other 3 could do the job. My rankings turned out to be Stacy and Sander top, Wynn second, and Ryan third, sort of based on overall, and I can go into more details, but sort of overall exposure to the aviation industry, experience in different parts of it, ideas, and so on. That's how it came out for me. So.
Robbie, Andy?
I agree with a lot of what you said, Steve. I think it was evident to me, especially when Brent was talking that to Craig, that Fergus was very secondary to him, and he didn't have a lot of community. When some of these questions, what makes you the best suited? Why do you want this position, obviously from my angle too, it's someone say what a great community we are, which I don't know if anyone fully said that specifically, but I think that element to me, it really kind of shifted my opinion from that standpoint on the local part of it. I don't want to be just kind of the secondary afterthought with what I think we would be if he were one to run it.
I would agree, and I think the thing that really stuck out, in Stacy and Sanders' proposal was commitment to 7 days a week being here versus, Craig kind of seemed to waffle a little bit on the Saturday piece, like, oh, do we not? And the fact that they're committing, and if we went with them, I would hold their feet to the fire as far as having an aircraft, in the short term to rent or in the near term. And local flight instruction, because I hear from people all the time who are driving to Alexandria for flight training, and they like it. They're having a good experience. No doubt it's something very good. But, when some of these people who are in business or in agriculture, they have busy schedules, they have families, they should be able to do that right here. And I just look at, kind of the overall proposal, and I was kind of the same as you, Steve. I kind of had Stacy, Sander, Wynn, and then Ryan in my scoring matrix as well too.
I think Stacy and Sander are a good option just because of the experience too in corporate world, and they do have management experience within buildings and refurbishing and everything there too, and the hours are good. We just need somebody present at the airport that's willing to be there, and like Dave is doing an amazing job right now. He's present there, he's helping fuel, he's being a thing on there, and yeah, 45 minutes is a long ways away for calling up somebody at 2 o'clock in the morning to help with something.
The biggest piece that I picked up, I think, from when Sanders spoke was, how are you going to measure this and with revenue? And, just kind of looking at it as a business as well. I don't think historically it's really, been run that seriously as far as a business is concerned. And so looking at it as a business and, talking about regional competition, Fergus Falls being number one, those were a couple other pieces that I picked up.
I truly think that CAA, I've never looked into it that much, but I've always kind of thought that was a big thing in the first part. If we get like a Phillips or a Shell or something here or someplace to come, and like was mentioned, we have one of the best ramps, airports, facilities to pull in a jet or something to come in here and just be present and have something for a little bit of a time. You can come down here from Fargo if you drop off a client, come down here, I think that's nice. There's a place to go and to save you go to a holiday because you have a holiday card, or this is be just discounts. That'd be good.
One thing I was impressed and surprised a little bit was with Wynn's interview compared to how they were on paper before. I think a lot of his answers were very well thought out, and you can definitely tell he has a passion for the community, and definitely had really good answers for when, if you didn't have experience or didn't know how to do it, kind of followed up with a plan on how he would figure out how to do it, which I really like.
I'm sorry, Lonnie hasn't had a turn, but one thing that I thought about was what value added can you bring to work that we don't have now? And of course, the instruction and the maintenance jump out, but the Stacy and Sander corporate experience and cross-country experience of how do you get this to be the cross-country fuel stop. And there's a little bit of a competitive issue there too, right? Do you promote Fergus or do you promote Alexandria too, back to that issue. But they would have the wherewithal to bring in a business like that. I like the idea, Craig's idea of, let's go after the Fargo-Moorhead market. That makes a lot of sense, but any of the four candidates could do that. It wouldn't, he didn't have a specific plan of here's what I'm going to contact and here's what I'm going to do it. So there's a lot of good ideas in all four of these, really.
It was interesting because when I went through and listened to the answers on each candidate, when I listened to Alexandria Aviation, you could tell he was very focused on being the FBO, running through it. He kind of has everything all together with it. But it lacked the passion piece that I saw for Fergus. So I agree with you on that, Steve. As they went down, I see when super excited about Fergus Falls, wanting to be right there, boots on the ground, hands-on, and knowing and having a plan on where to get his answers and kind of bringing things through. I get a little nervous about kind of some of the fallback on utilizing current people at the airport that we're struggling with now. And that kind of, you know, that kind of raises a red flag on my side of it. I also struggle with, on his portion, how does he advance and have the capability to advance the Fergus Falls Airport, whether it's a charter service or whatnot, and have them based out of Fergus. And I got to Sanders and Stacy's proposal, and you know, again, a lot of passion about Fergus Falls. You know, I did like the piece that him and Stacy could back to back or tag as far as hours, that they would have someone there 7 days a week. I did think about that as far as when would do that, but it would be him, and how long would that perform before he couldn't perform it. And those are questions that we never got to ask. But in looking at that, I kind of felt Ryan already has a full-time position and a business that he's running with. You know, he had mentioned this would be an avenue that he could actually get some other people to help him for his business. But again, it seemed to focus around his current business and not the Fergus Airport itself. And I think every candidate we have would be would do the best that they could to make Fergus as good as they could.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, Steve, I'll go with you, and however anybody else wants to go, but I would rank Sandra and Stacy at this point would be probably my number one.
Does someone want to make a motion, or is there any further discussion?
We'll do some public comment first.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
You guys haven't taken cost considerations into any of this. That concerns me. There's $20,000 difference, correct, between candidates?
22, well, so you were 50, Wynn was 48,000, you were 54,000, Sandra and Stacy were 72, and Alex was 70.
Right. Okay. Just want to make that known that there's a lot of money that's on the table there, and you're not, nobody considered that in this whole process. So, just my 2 cents as a airport user, so to speak.
I agree that that's important. It's hard to put apples to apples here when you have the varying hours offered and the varying services offered and so on. So it's a factor. It's not lost on me, but it doesn't change my opinion, I don't think.
I tend to agree. I would rather invest a little bit more in someone, who has the experience, the passion, and, as I'm, just walking away from the interview and then looking at the consultant's rubric a little bit at some of these things.
Do you know, Andrew, or maybe, I don't know if Mike would know, I know there was references included. Did somebody call references on?
The only reference that was included, I think Randy had written a letter for.
Wynn had somebody in there for the Black Hills and things too, that I've read.
I can look here, I've got all of them. Let's see, Wynn's proposal.
Well, Donald, Alec did too.
Wynn said references available upon request.
Okay.
Sandra, did you guys submit any references?
No, because a lot of the references involved would have been people tied to the process probably, and we just excluded that, but we have countless references available. Whatever you would need, we can provide those anytime.
Can I ask Sandra a question? Or is it past that point?
Whatever you'd like.
Right now? Because I know you do have property management and businesses. Can you just talk high level quantity, how many businesses do you have and how many properties do you manage?
Yeah, for sure we can. So, businesses wise, we operate 4 businesses really in Fergus Falls, excluding the property management portion. Property wise, we have roughly 10 commercial buildings just downtown, so Main Street, that's where the local piece comes in for us. And then residential units, we have, I don't know the exact number, but it goes into the hundreds of units that we have that we manage. So it's a good chunk of just that's it.
And do you have a large staff that's going to manage those properties? Because taking on,
That's
something
already
new.
ongoing for us. So currently, like, I don't, my day-to-day doesn't consist of doing that. We have people in place, so we have a maintenance staff, we have people that take care of leases, and we have a rent drop-off location. We have managers in each business, and we have backup staff for those managers as well. So we have a good network of people taking care of things, and that's what I mentioned earlier. Just for us, we're the background, so we make sure that everything runs, and that somebody has somebody to answer to, because that's most important. It's the difference between clocking in every day at those businesses versus just overseeing, make sure that they're run correctly, and that goes for everything we do. The airport bid would be the difference for us. We'd want to be there to make sure that that airport grows into what it should be. So distinctively different roles for us and how we view it. We want to be at the airport. Yes.
Okay.
I don't know if that answered your question.
No, you did. Thank you.
Steve?
If we go the direction it sounds like we might be going here, we're sort of, to respond further on your point, we're maybe sort of paying for growth and future prospects, I guess. And so I think it's a really, and I meant what I said, that any one of, that I do rule out Alexandria. That's sort of a light switch thing for me, for the reason I said. The other 3, I could, and I would have been happy with Alexandria. I'd be happy with any of them. And I appreciate Brian's investment in the airport and the personal money and the time he's put into it and so on to operate his business. So I don't overlook that or the pricing. But I think for our group, for our committee, we need to get right to work after this is settled on an evaluation process, so that if we are paying extra for sort of the promise of future performance, we need to make sure that the city gets its money's worth and that actually happens. And if it turns out that Sanders spending his time on the rental units and he's not focusing on the airport, we need to find that out, and the city needs to look at it again whenever the next contract is up. And that's good practice anyway.
There's yearly reviews anyways.
Yeah, and one thing that I don't think anybody mentioned that I thought about, and Brent left, but car dealers, you get bombarded with, will you give us 5 stars, or give us your feedback, or you post your review on Google, whatever it is. I think feedback for, how's it going from the customers as well as from the city? Are they performing up to standards? Is there something, are they open to suggestions? Is there something that they should be doing that they're not? Whatever. I think, for better or worse, it kind of falls to us to try to evaluate that ongoing and see if whatever decision we make was the right one.
Sure. And I think we were finally getting there, with our process this year and having kind of a review process where all of the board members take part, and then there's a self-review. I don't believe they got communicated to Kurt because he had resigned at that point and Brian didn't see the merit, but I think if we keep that ongoing. Also, Ryan, to answer, as I'm looking at this, like you had said, 54,000 and are open Monday through Friday, like Stacy and Sandra, they were the most expensive, but are committed to Saturday and Sunday. That's 100 extra days a year. So, I mean, I can't break that down quick in my head, but I think looking at it, so at first glance, just looking at that line, you're right, but in thinking about it, I think, that is an excellent value. So.
It's 30%. There.
No, sure. 36%. Okay. Gotcha.
It was just representing what Sandra had sent to me, which is some concerns too.
Sure. Well, any further discussion? Would someone like to make a motion?
Sure. I'll make a motion that we recommend the LLC application.
We have a motion? Is there a second? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Annie, you look like you're thinking, so.
No.
you got-
Well, I obviously have a different angle than a lot of you, and I don't necessarily rank them, and I do see positives of both. Sandra, I guess I don't know Stacy. I wish he would have been here. I've heard of him, and then also just from the angle I look at it, again, not a pilot, but you know, some of Wynn's comments about really wanting to make the airport a good experience and better thought out. But again, on the flip side, I see the value of Sandra and Stacy, so I can see both sides. I know I don't know a lot of these people like you do, some of the pilots and everything, so I only know my experience with them. And again, with some of the candidates, I have a lot of experience with people they've worked with in the past too, so I think I have some concerns about both, but I would never want to put someone in a position where I wouldn't support it, so I will definitely go with the group on the decision to be made, because again, I don't have a ton of experience with all the candidates, but do have some just a couple reservations, but nothing that is going to make me not support whichever candidate the group decides.
And don't write in my motion that it was an easy one. I mean, there's so many issues to consider here. It's a like I said, I guess it's a great fortune or blessing that we have a hard decision to make here, rather than, gosh, we can't find anybody. It's just the opposite, which isn't what I would have expected to hear it open.
No, I agree, and yeah, we are lucky to have really, really good options, and it is tough, but I think, looking at everything and looking at the fact that we have someone who's local, boots on the ground every day, I think what Brent said was important. The fact that we're going to have someone there 7 days a week. I still think we've got to find some way, Sander, to open up the terminal so that it's accessible. So if I'm out fueling up and I've got my wife and kids with, they can go in the terminal and don't have to sit in the hallway by the bathroom. I mean, I look at all of those pieces, and I think, having maintenance, having had to fly an airplane down to Elbow Lake to get it fixed in time, with one breakout, that wasn't exceptionally fun. So having a better option, I think is really important, and an airplane to rent and some quality flight instructions. So.
Most places seem to have like a key in the Unicom frequency to
Right.
get in, but then you'd have to, so that's getting into the weeds, but that's a good idea to figure out how to reconfigure that.
I don't like things like Ryan, but he was a great guy, and I think it was cheaper, but I think going back to you, he just didn't have the experience and or able, he just kind of looked at that onto his own business.
But it wasn't really cheaper if you do the math, I think.
Right.
If you compare that and you figure 100 extra, full-time days more or less, his proposal was not less expensive.
He specifically said what you just said, Robbie. I made a note of it, and that was really important to me on the very last question of why do you want this opportunity? He said it's a good fit to my existing business. That's the opposite of it would be good for the community, and it's it is a great thing that that you can have that synergy, but that kind of gives away what the focus is.
Because your spraying area time is different with the weather and his own crop sales of his stated revenue in that too. So I say we move forward.
Well, all those in favor of Steve's motion in recommending to the council HLS LLC DBA Sky Crew Services, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, we have a recommendation.
Who's going to contact the candidates? I guess one of
I
them
can.
knows. Okay.
I suppose. HR, can you? Kidding. No. Thanks, Mike, for your help.
You bet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I take a minute to talk history before, I know it's getting late, but I thought back, I'm the old guy in the room, and I am a former owner of the FBO, and I worked at the airport starting when I was in high school, and I flew Part 135 and instructed and did everything. And thinking back to who have been the best FBOs over the years, I think Joe Dvorak was. And of course, he ran a spray business as well, but he was a CPA before he was in aviation, then he flew P-51s in the war. And so when I would work the line like on a Sunday morning and it'd be dead, I was his bookkeeper. So, and I think Sanders said, we'll find, people who would do that. And, there's always cleaning to do and
Are
stuff.
you applying?
I was just saying.
Is that what you're leading into?
I'm available. I'm on my hands. And then I thought about Lucky Scholl, who was actually my partner in owning the FBO, but he was the airport manager, and he had no airport experience. Well, he had no airport management experience, but he was always hanging out at the airport and flying his Champ. Never did get his private. He was a student pilot for about 30 years or whatever. But he came up. He presided over getting the money for the new airport runway, 1331 and the administration building, and he worked full-time at the Viking Cafe, sort of, as well as full-time at the airport. I know how he did that, but the administration building, he sketched out on the back of a napkin, and it was the combined hangar and administration building. It was such a good idea that Park Rapids used the same thing, and maybe it was Crookston or some other place did too. But so, and I don't discount the value of being an existing FBO, but sometimes other things work out pretty well for you too, I think, so.
All right.
That was the good old days.
I went back. I want to go to Vinnie Furman. I didn't really wasn't a part of that, but I want to go to DL and get the coffee and donuts at 6 o'clock in the morning. That's what I want.
All right.
All right.
Well,
Thank you, guys.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.